Your decision to be present this morning speaks louder than words to your commitment to the UU values and fellowship. As I ring the bell, take a deep breath and relax into the warmth, safety, and strength of this beloved community. Good morning and welcome all. This combined service of the Unitarian Universalists of the Chester River in Chestertown, Maryland, and the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship at Easton, Maryland. As Sue mentioned, I'm Nancy Holland. I'm one of the service leaders at the Chester River congregation, and happy also to be working with our joint minister, the Reverend Sue Browning, this morning. We are glad you are all here with us, and we hope that you'll remain on past the service on the Zoom link for coffee hour. If you have a candle at home that you are lighting, please join me as we light the chalice. Each time we light the chalice, we renew our commitment to the Unitarian Universalist faith. With the spark of a match, we make it new again, and fresh and surprising as the first day we encountered this spiritual community and realized we were home. I hope you all remember your Harry Potter and Hogwarts headmaster Albus Dumbledore, who said, "It's not our abilities that show what we truly are, it's our choices." Now, we all make numerous choices every day, right? Some of those decisions we make are important and may set us on a path for life. Many others are minor. What are you going to cook for dinner tonight? Whatever. Some things are important, some things aren't. Some decisions we make are worthy of us, and maybe others not so much. The psychologist Rollo May believed that people become fully human only by the choices they make and their commitment to those choices. He and other thinkers posit that we humans attain our worth and dignity by the decisions and the commitments we make. Our choices give direction to our lives, they shape and give meaning to our lives, and they reveal who we truly are as human beings. Sometimes we may hesitate to make a decision or a commitment, whether it's to a course of action, a person, a job, a cause. Why does that happen? Why are we sometimes hesitant and other times may jump in with 2 feet without even thinking? Is failing to make a commitment or a decision making a decision in itself? These and other aspects of commitment will be explored today by Sue and a member of each of our congregations as we explore the nature of commitment. And now feel free to sing along if you would like to our first hymn, Gather the Spirit, number 347.
Gather the Spirit, by this the morning. So I had already selected our Thoughts for All Ages before I saw a picture on Facebook last night, and I said I would try to work this into the story, so I will. Yesterday, there were a group of folks who gathered in Easton. They were doing a little vine cleanup, and the caption that was posted was, and I won't name names here, his wife said he couldn't use a step ladder, and so he did this. And you've got a picture of, well, okay, it was Jim, standing on a bucket, leaning way over, determined to get a vine that he wanted to cut down. There's something in that story that really speaks of commitment, that determination, that dogged place we go. But it's not the story I selected for Thoughts for All Ages. The story comes from an article written by a young woman named Emma, and she says this: when I was a freshman in high school, my basketball team was small. In fact, it was so small we didn't have a freshman or JV team, and they suited me up for varsity. The coach was tough, and he conducted tough physical practices. And while I was on varsity, I barely got to play. Essentially, I thought, well, when I'm a sophomore, then I'll get to play. But when I got to the beginning of sophomore year, it was just different. I found myself sitting on the bench, only going in at the last minute if we were winning by a lot. I was going to all those practices. It was cold, it was dark. It was exhausting. So I begged my parents to let me quit the team. They didn't say no, but they gave me a condition. I could quit if I approached my coach and asked him about my role and what I could do to get better. Approach Coach P. To me, this was an absolute nightmare. I didn't sleep that night. I decided in math class I was just going to do it that day after practice. So coach was sitting in his office and I asked if I could talk to him, and soon I sat down and I was just sobbing. My disappointment and my self-doubt all playing out. So he let me talk, and then he let me listen, and he was honest. He told me I wasn't ready, I was too weak to be on the floor when it mattered the most, and that I didn't work hard enough off season. He told me that I had potential, he hoped I would stick it out, but I wasn't ready yet. So I did finish the season despite a lack of playing time, and I worked hard that summer, and the next year I played every single game. She asks this question: what would have happened if my parents sent Coach P an email demanding to know why I wasn't playing? And I think the lesson that we have here, the lesson that this young woman, Emma, who's now a high school basketball coach, she shares in the article, her big takeaway was the learning about commitment there was that question, that place of checking in with the coach, as terrifying as it was. So today, as we talk about commitments are sort of a promise. A commitment is something we say, we're going to do this, we're going to hang in there, we're going to say yes and do the work. But commitments come with places of doubt. They come with places where we're not sure how we're going to work through the issues. And I think that's part of our major message today. I think it's when we work with our teens and our kids, is to let them know they're not alone when they hit a rough patch. There's often not a right answer to should I quit or not, but there is a place of learning to be accountable and to understand what it's like when you hit that moment of hesitancy, that moment of reluctance. So that's our story for today. And I invite everyone, as we go through our service today, to start thinking about places where you've made commitments, where you've been reluctant to make commitments, because those will come up in a couple different segments of the service this morning. I invite us now into a time of meditation, a time of reflection. I invite us to remember that it was just 1 year ago this weekend that we were still having services, what became our last service in person. I invite us to reflect on this community, the community of love and support that has become our congregations that sustained us this year. I invite us to reflect on the learning in your lives over the last year, the place of adaptation. And I invite us into a prayer of gratitude. Reflect for a moment on this year, on today, on this week. We offer our gratitude for the places we have been safe, for the food on our table, the warmth of our shelter, the care and compassion of so many that have seen us through this year. In the many ways we all understand the holy, let's pause for just a moment and recognize how we have supported one another and the commitments that have been made this past year, this past week, and today. Amen, and blessed be. Nancy Holland will now lead us in our joys and concerns today.
That we hold for sharing those things that are closest and deepest in our hearts, be they joys, worries, concerns. I light the first candle, as we have for the last year, for our first responders, the frontline workers who've been out there helping us all stay safe, for all those who have lost their lives to COVID, and for all those who mourn those lost. Well, for all those joys and concerns that have been shared today, as well as those that remain in our hearts, for which I will light another candle, let us take a moment of silence. Blessed be. And next we have music. My Life Flows On in Endless Song, recorded by the UU Delmarva Cluster Choir.
Storm can shake. was calm, while to that rock I'm clinging. Since love prevails in heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing? When tyrants tremble as they hear the bells of freedom ringing, when friends rejoice both far and near, how can I keep from singing? To prison cell and dungeon vile, our thoughts to them are winging. When friends by shame are undefiled, how can I keep from singing?
So I think we're spotlighting me for just a minute, and then we will go to the next video. I think make sure my file is right. So one of the cool things about virtual services, there are good things, there's some downsides, but there's some good things, is we have a chance to think ahead of the service. And one of the conversations I had, you'll see in just a minute, was an interview, sort of an interview conversation with MQ Riding and Ann Davis. And I asked them to think a little bit about commitments and a few examples in their lives. So we hear now from Ann and MQ from a midweek interview. So today we're talking about commitment, and earlier in the service, we defined commitment as someplace where you've made a choice, and once you've made that choice, you've got some obligations. So I thought it would be fun to talk to a couple of our members and think about not just commitments they've made, but times they were reluctant to make a commitment. So we've got MQ Riding and Ann Davis here. And so I want to ask, I'll start with MQ Riding. Can you provide us an example of a commitment you considered where you had some reluctance? Could you just sort of briefly describe what that commitment was and any reasons you remembered of why you were reluctant?
Sure, thanks for asking. A few years ago, some folks approached me at my former church, Mill Creek in Newark, Delaware, to accept the nomination of president for the organization. And the church is a medium-sized church, about 150 people at the time, and it was a big undertaking. There was also, we were just moving into a new building that we had built, raised money for, and there was a lot of change management that was occurring for the membership and for the leadership too. So I was, I put a lot of thought into it, and I was very reluctant, and it was because of three basic reasons. The first was I had a pretty heavy job in real life. I was the executive at a utility, and there was a lot going on, and I didn't think I had the ability to manage my time well enough to do both jobs well. The second was I was the chair of the Religious Education Committee, and the committee had been together for several years, and we were a very strong committee. Our program was growing. It was at 50 children already, and we knew that it was going to grow in the coming years. And I was very committed, still am, to RE for children in UUFE, but I was very committed, and I was worried I would lose something there. And then, frankly, I thought there were better candidates. I most definitely saw others in the church as stronger candidates for presidency. But, you know, I had to think that through, and ultimately I accepted the nomination.
So you were reluctant for sure, and it was a hard decision. And could you give us an example in your life where you were either invited into making a commitment or you were making a choice about a commitment and you were reluctant. Could you talk about an example and tell us a little bit about any reluctance you might have had?
Sure. The most recent example was when I was invited to be a member of the board of the Talbot Interfaith Shelter. And that part of the decision wasn't difficult because I'd been a volunteer with the organization for several years and knew it was a very sound organization and that I liked the people in the leadership there. But very shortly after becoming a board member, I was invited to be the chair of the development committee. That took a little bit more thought and consideration because that's not an area in which I have any experience or knowledge. And so I thought, hey, I don't know if that's really for me. But in talking with the development director and the president, I thought, well, maybe I can do it. This will be a learning experience. And so I agreed to do it.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons that we are sometimes reluctant with one thing or the other. We see company coming through during our interview. I just had to wave somebody off as well. Jack's got his moment on camera. So the follow-up questions, that's good. It's all good. We just had 2 walk-ins on one interview. So you both made choices. You both told me these were things ultimately you chose to say yes to. MQ, going back to you, how did it end up working out? And anything you want to share about what you learned about making commitments, particularly those that we start out with a lot of doubts about?
Well, it was probably one of the best decisions I ever made, frankly. One, it taught me in my real life job that you can go to your boss, who at the time was the CEO of the company, and I said, look, I have this opportunity. I want to negotiate something with you. So can we back off some of my projects, give them to some other people? I mean, I never would have done that before, never. So I was empowered because I felt so strongly about Mill Creek and doing that job the best I could. It also taught me that I could still be engaged in religious education, but somebody else got an opportunity to become a leader. So I helped them become a leader. And was I the best person for the job? I don't know. I know I did my best, and that's all you really can expect. And I made mistakes, and nobody, was mean to me. I mean, all the things that you worry about, really, it didn't happen. What happened was I grew, and what happened was that church grew. I learned a lot about myself, and I would say you have to be serious about the commitments you make, but once you do, you just got to dive in, both feet, and go keep running, That's kind of where I went.
Yeah, commitments have their own nature. And what I loved about the commitment that you chose to tell us about is it's still fresh and new. So
yep.
you've gone in with, a few cautions. What have you learned so far? Where's the commitment taking you? Any surprises, any learnings at your end?
Yeah, I was nervous, concerned, but one of the questions I had was, would there be support for my new learning that I knew I'd be doing? And yes, indeed, there has been. And I found that I'm able to bring some experience, actually, from my work with Reverend Sue on job descriptions. That's been helpful. As a new person on the board, I'm seeing that there are gaps in policy and procedures that just haven't been considered before. So when I ask questions, they go, oh, we really need to clarify that or whatever. Plus the fact that I'm learning a new vocabulary and a new perspective on what development means. And so yeah, like MQ, it's a growth experience also. And I already was committed to the organization, and now I'm getting more and more committed to the role as development committee chair.
So as we sort of wind down our chatting with members, what I heard is the way commitment comes with depth. It comes with uncertainty. It's suspending some control. And there are so many different places where new experiences and bridging of experiences come in that folks feel like they're making a contribution. So I look forward to the service, and I look forward to hearing more from both of you about commitments over the next months and years. Take care and thank you.
Thanks.
That was, I'm just gonna adjust light here. The light changes here over the course of the morning. What we heard there were just a couple of stories, and if we were in person, I know everybody would give them a big hand, so I ask you to do that virtually. I'll also note that in the Delmarva choir piece, you heard Dave Moore and Patty Rubin. So we come to the sense of commitments knowing that the evidence is strong. Every single thing you read, everything you hear says if you live with some meaningful commitments in your life, you're likely to have a feeling of a fulfilled life. Having meaningful commitments, whether it's to your family, your vocation, for some folks it's a commitment to recovery, a commitment to faith. Having some meaningful commitments in your life matters. And having commitments like that is very closely tied. A lot of times you hear people talking about it really matters to have a sense of purpose in life. That is one of the things that makes us just feel like whole, spiritually fulfilled beings. We sometimes commit to someone or something. When we do that, we are putting our energy in that direction. So that's how I think about commitments. We mentioned earlier the term obligation. There's a moment when you say yes that you do end up bringing on obligations as a part of commitment. Our commitments require time and attention. Sometimes they're financial commitments. Sometimes they're about sharing resources. What I loved in the conversations we had earlier is MQ shared how she carefully weighed the decision to become a board president. And Anne talks about that place of not quite knowing it was something new as she was going to become the chair of the development committee. So I ask everybody here as we go on and reflect a bit, where have you made commitments in your life? Where did you decide, yes, that's mine to do in this world? That's a fit for me. Maybe it was, yes, this relationship is worth my commitment. Were you all in from the start? What do you remember? Can you remember a place? Sometimes once we've made the commitment, we think that's how it has always been. But can you remember that place of reluctance? I ask us all to think about the places where we've said no. We've said that sacred no, that this does not fit for me now. Possibly there was some juncture in your career or choosing an education path where you picked another option. Maybe it was in the military or about a partner or a friend. I think when we think about that whole mash, if I think about everybody who is on this call right now and all those choices, big and small, we know there is a sense of struggle when we go through that discernment process. I think when we're in that, what I'm going to call sort of that, let me think about it space, we're often offering ourselves, both aloud, some of us are verbal processors aloud, some of us struggle at night. We're giving the litany to ourselves of why this is not going to work. I think when we're kicking around a possible commitment, we look a lot of times at some of those downsides. And I want to take us again this week, two weeks in a row, to the Bible. And remember, there's a place where Moses has got this burning bush and he's got God, and God's saying, I need you to bring the Israelites out of Egypt. And Moses launches into just one of these litanies. Who am I that I should go to the Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? Moses was sort of questioning, do I have the kind of standing it's going to take to be that kind of leader? And God assures Moses, I'm going to be with you. And Moses goes on, but suppose they don't believe me. What if folks don't listen to me? And God pushes back, says, you're sort of going to get through this. And Moses keeps going. He goes, oh Lord, I have never been eloquent, neither in the past or even now that you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow in speech and slow of tongue. God says, fine, bring a friend. We'll take Aaron. It will be okay. Reluctance comes from our worries. What if I'm not ready? We ask. What if I'm not going to be effective? What if there are others who could do this? And the responses, there's sort of a pattern. You're not going to be alone. Someone's got your back. Aaron will be there. We hear in here the Lord being particularly persistent. It was a call to Moses. It was a reminder that Moses was needed by his community to do this work. He needed to commit. It wasn't going to be a perfect scenario. And he had his questions heard. And as Moses takes on this leadership process, or as Anne steps up, or MQ steps up, or we have our basketball player Emma earlier in the story, there's a place where you lose some anonymity when you step up and commit. It happens in our families, it happens in our private lives. There is a place where it's known that we're going to give it a try. And there's the risks and the uncertainties. In the moment of choosing, in that moment of choosing here with Moses, that commitment became an obligation. And right in the midst of an uncertain future, obligation, I think, can feel like a really weighty word. Because I think when we sign up for some obligations, we lose some choices in our lives. When we enter that place, we're going to go into that place of sort of that come what may mode. We're promising to stay the course, to deal with the risks, to deal with that loss of freedom. But I'm hearing, when I listen to MQ and Anne, that's not quite how it feels when they signed up for these obligations. I don't hear them feeling weighted down. There's almost a lightness to their story. You hear what commitment brought into their lives. They were commitments that fit for them, maybe not the perfect fit. But nothing is ever going to be perfect. I don't think there's just one path. So as we think about what it's like when we're at that cusp, what do you need to trust around you to say yes? If we're reluctant, if our hearts are telling us to hold back and our heads are screaming caution, what might we be hearing? What might we fear? And in those moments, what guides our choices? I think there are all those practical questions. Do we have the skills? What are we going to have to learn? How hard are we going to have to practice? Do we have the time? Or more, maybe the question is it worth making the time? I think it was really interesting in MQ's story earlier. She talks about how she actually had the courage, which is a moment of courage when you walk into your boss or you walk into that coach and asked for her paid responsibilities to be realigned so she could answer her congregation's call to serve. What I loved was the surprise she had in herself that she actually took that step. Because I think commitments come with a lot of those little steps. And the examples here from Anne and MQ were about churches and nonprofits. But I do think we make commitments about relationships and vocations and so many other things. I think the hardest question, and it gets asked over and over, is will I be alone? Because there are going to be rough spots. There is going to be a place of learning. There's going to be a place where you want to make sure you're not holding all that responsibility alone. And I think that's a place we're invited to be aware not only of our own commitments, but the risks that others around us are taking. All wise questions as we do that discernment, that sorting out of what's a fit for us. And if we go back and remember that commitments make our lives, give our lives purpose. If we keep saying no, we're going to be missing that part of the boat. But I do sometimes think we're trying to really neatly stack up our commitments. We want everything nicely controlled and scheduled. We want well thought out piles like we've just straightened out the drawers in our dresser. But what we know of commitments is that controlled image is not what's going to be happening. Meaningful commitments, whether they're small or large, that frame our purpose of our life, when we go all in, it is going to take us to the unexpected. There will be messiness at times. The commitments will come with new avenues, new connections, even maybe adventure. Hopefully it's going to come with some satisfaction, a sense of completed projects or new relationships. Maybe it's a commitment to do a small cleanup of something. Maybe it's a broader commitment. What if when we think about our ways that we do our commitments, what if we think about we are called to do that work? And we are called to bring in there our most compassionate, our best self. And we come with a willingness to have our lives disrupted. Because commitments aren't made or sustained in a vacuum. If I look back at the story, God actually wasn't that interested on how Moses was feeling about the commitment. He was answering Moses' questions, but he was helping Moses hear the call of his community. What if one of the questions we asked is, what is our part of the whole? Where are we needed now? It might fulfill us. It probably will. Where can we commit? Where can we go all in with our imperfections, knowing our limitations? Because we need to be ready to try, to fail, to dust off. And we need to trust that things will realign over time. There'll be the commitments we drop, and that's good too. We need to know that there is that flow, and we're going to be making these commitments as the train of our life is running. There was a reading from Reverend David Blanchard that drew me in this week. It was a call that asks us to never stop promising, to never stop committing. It says this: do more than simply keep the promises made in your vow. Do something more. Keep promising. As time passes, keep promising new things, deeper things, vaster things, yet unimagined things. Promises that will be needed to fill the expanses of time and of love. Keep promising. I think there's just an image of an ever-expanding journey as we have the courage to make these promises. I want to also say I don't hear this as a call to keep adding more and more to the list. I don't hear it as a call to do it all. But I do hear it as a call to abandon the sense of the perfect portfolio of commitments, to knowing there's just no one path. Maybe commitments are less about tasks and taking time, less about always doing your absolute best and getting it all right, Maybe commitments are more about letting things unfold with depth. If we commit to what's really needed, and if we meet those commitments creatively, what might intertwine with what we already know? Maybe it's not as heavy as we think it might be. So when we make those commitments, even the ones we're reluctant to, maybe those creative energies are what are released. Maybe that's why commitments have us have that sense of satisfaction, that sense of feeling a purpose in life. Can we figure it out as we go? Can we trust ourselves that that may be the path? I take Anne and MQ as inspiration. Our lives our commitments enrich our lives. They give it depth and meaning. My hope today is that our choices give direction, shape, and meaning to our lives, and that our commitments reveal to us and to the world who it is we are. May it be so, and blessed be. Our final hymn today, as we think through commitments, as we think through flow, we have Ampersand singing Peace Like a River. It's number 100 in your hymnal if you've got it, and I think the words will come to you as we go.
I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got love like an ocean, love like an ocean, I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got love like an ocean, I've got love like an ocean, love like an ocean in my soul. I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul.
So we are now entering into a moment of announcements. I do think Dave Moore, he was actually the person who came to my door in the middle of the interview. He was in Ampersand, he was in the virtual Delmarva choir, and he was doing our spotlighting today. So Dave Moore, a special thanks to you for your participation in so many ways in our service today. We are looking at ways to both do announcements and to help them reflect the spirit of being with two congregations. And I ask now if anybody from the Easton congregation, if any of the leaders, if Emily or anyone would like to do any announcements. If not, I will. I didn't have a chance to check.
Yeah, so this is Christina Droston, the board president at UUFE, and I would just like to build off of the great discussion today about commitment, how and why we make commitment, and let everybody from UUFE know that next Sunday, March 14th, is one of the most important services that we have of the year. It's when our stewardship team is going to ask all of us from UUFE to reflect on our commitment to the congregation and renew our financial pledge for the upcoming year. So I encourage everybody to please try to attend our service next Sunday.
And I will note that it is daylight savings time. So clocks are going to spring forward and you will be up and perky for our service on March 14th. So we're looking forward to that. There's a lot of work that's gone into this service. You're going to hear stone soup, some music, and we're very excited. Any other announcements from UUCR? Anything folks need to know about there?
Hello.
Dave Beeler.
Hi. Just want to announce that thanks to our stewardship committee, headed by Jim Lavin and Carl and Lynn Geisert, I believe we've made most of our pledge, and that's a good feeling, and congratulations. And I think it's 2 weeks from now, we're having UUCR is having their annual sock burning. So keep that in mind and look out for announcements on that.
Great. Thank you. I do ask that everyone read the newsletters, keep an eye on all of the announcements that are going around. We are doing our best to stay in communication. We've got stuff going both on Facebook, but the newsletter, and if you'd like to sign up for the newsletter or some of your friends would like to, that is the crux of how we stay in touch with one another. And I'm not sure if I'm spotlighted now. I can't tell. There we go. Miraculously, as Nancy invited everybody to light their chalice, I lit one here. And I extinguish our chalice today in gratitude for the many ways we've journeyed together, the commitments of these communities, knowing of the commitments that everyone here has in their own lives. For the many ways those journeys come together, we extinguish our chalice. Go in peace, go in love, go knowing love surrounds you wherever you may go. We have go lift it up, and then after that will be coffee hour.